In this video, I'm going to show you the Wyrmblade kill team and give you my first impressions. Just a disclaimer before we get started. Yes, this whole video is going to be 90% screenshots from Last Half Dead's video of it, because I saw these rules a few places and he had the best quality camera. Since he has the best quality images of it, wanted to make sure I gave him a proper shout out before we got started. So now that we got that out of the way, let's look at the team. This is going to be the Genestealer Cult's White Dwarf team, called the Wyrmblade. It will mostly be Neophyte focused, but you get a few other more powerful options. You'll get every Neophyte model as an option, as well as a Kellermorph, a Locust, and the Santa Sniper and Talon. These specialty models count as 2 models towards your total, which at 1 leader and 13 others, this team is on the larger side. It is interesting that the White Dwarf team is pretty significantly different than the Compendium version with model selection. That isn't something we really got with the AdMech one. On one side, more choices are nice, but anyone with a Genestealer cult team will have to go get other models if they want all the options. Next up we have the abilities. The first is Cult Ambush. This one is very powerful, but only relevant turn 1. If you have an operative with this ability, you can change its order when you activate it during the first turning point. And if you do, you get a free reroll when you fight or shoot. Being able to deploy everything in concealment first turning point is strong enough, the rerolls are just overkill. I think this alone is a giant buff to the team. Then we have the second ability, which means that the operatives can't have equipment, but has an invul save as well as getting extra benefits than shooting if it's in cover. Obviously the invul save and the cover bonuses are nice, but not taking equipment may be painful if it's one of the better models for the team. Next up we have the Ploys. I'm not going to read all of these off, but they are pretty largely focused on maximizing the hiding ability of the Genestealers. Obviously there's some stuff about changing orders, but they do have a strategic ploy called Crossfire that's kind of like the Marker Light ability of the Tau Empire, where you can mark a target and then you get bonuses when you attack them. And there's also a strategic ploy that lets you turn light cover into obscuring cover, which is super powerful if you're positioned well. So all of their ploys seem pretty solid. A few of them are mission specific, but still, I think if you're a Genestealer player, you won't be disappointed with these options. Now let's get to the actual data sheets. The leader isn't very tanky, but I'm sure you're meant to use your ploys in position to keep him alive. He also has an ability to let neophytes use some free tactical ploys. Anytime you can save CP while getting the benefits of a ploy, that's a pretty good trade. Now we have the character that is the Kellermorph. This one has a short range profile and a long range profile for its shooting attacks. It can make 2 shooting attacks in 1 turn. And for an AP, it can buff its short range weapon profile to daily no cover special rule, as well as some other benefits. It can give other neophytes bonuses if it incapacitates an enemy operative, which would be pretty easy to do looking at this weapon. With being APL3, this is a really powerful model. I can't imagine it won't be in basically every kill team that runs this fashion. Alright, next up we have the normal troops. These are GA2, which is nice, but nothing else major here. They do have Cult Ambush, which is an awesome buff compared to the Compendium team. And then for the Gunner, similar profile to the Compendium team, but still getting that nice Cult Ambush bonus. I'll put a picture of the Heavy Gunner on the screen here so you can pause and look at it, but nothing different from the others. And then same story with the Icon Bearer, really. Alright, now that we got those out of the way, let's get back to the new interesting stuff. We have the Sniper. The weapon profile was very solid with 4 attacks, hitting on a 2-up and 3 damage with Silent and Mortal Wounds 3. But this model can also remove defensive traits like Smoke and Obscuring, while giving itself Lethal 5. And with that Lethal 5, remember it is Mortal Wounds 3 on crits, so you double your chances of triggering that. All of these bonuses take AP and the weapon is heavy, so it's not a very mobile unit, but it does pack a punch. The Talon is equally as deadly, but melee only. The weapon has lethal 4-up, so yes, that is 4-up to crit. And it has stun as a critical special rule. It can also charge from concealment, kinda like the Orc Commandos can. It gets free dashes, and you can use AP for brutal and balance. Between the crits, stuns, and brutal, it will be very difficult to stop the damage from coming through. This seems like one of those models that excels at just taking down a high value target. Then finally we have the Locust. Without reading everything, it has an awesome melee profile. It can use multiple methods to get free charges and can fight twice. This model is meant to just jump from target to target, and just wreck them in melee. I don't see it being nearly as effective against super elite melee fighters like the Custodes with Storm Shields, but jumping between Imperial Guardsmen, it would do some crazy damage with little effort. For equipment, they have climbing equipment, their blast grenade type weapons, a defensive talisman, and I think possibly the best is the Spotlight. This keeps enemy models from being obscure if they're within a certain range of a model with a Spotlight. Sneak something to their backlines with this and charge it into the enemy team, and your gunners and heavy gunners can really put in some work. Maybe I'm underplaying the climbing equipment, but overall this looks like some pretty standard equipment. And now we have the Fashion Tac Ops. The first one basically creates a new primary objective, but only for you, with the main difference being your opponent places it. Obviously they can place it in a spot that's very difficult for you to hide at, and since your models aren't that tanky, it may be difficult to grab. But since you have a pretty large kill team, it might be easier to take 1 or 2 basic troops and put them on this new objective once the opponent is distracted by everything else. I think it would just really depend on what you're fighting and what the board setup is. The second Fashion Tac Op is simple. It's just deal more wounds to the enemy than you took. This sounds difficult, but since you do specialize in hiding and optimizing those conceal orders while ignoring your opponents, this lets you play safe while still getting your Tac Op points. I think this will be a really popular one. And then for number 3 on the list, we have Assassination. This makes you mark a target and then, well, you assassinate them for a point. With some of your more powerful models like the Locust and the Sniper, this shouldn't be too difficult, but it's situational. Assassinating a guardsman is easier than taking out a Tyranid warrior, so it just depends on what the enemy team has. To give my concluding thoughts, like I said in the Tac Ops overview, this team is about utilizing cover and terrain to get the jump on your enemy when they don't have a chance to fight back. If the Wyrmblade team gets overwhelmed and loses control of the board, they may be in trouble. But with the different methods of movement and removing the opponent's cover, they should be able to stop most teams from sneaking their way across the board, so I think it looks like a fun team. I do have mixed feelings on the characters though. On one side, it's awesome you can use them, but without them the team is probably pretty underpowered and a lot of players won't want to buy these additional models. So I do understand that from both sides. I don't personally play Genestealers, but one of my friends does, and I know he's wanting to use their team without having to buy more models, so there are pros and cons here. I'm excited to see how these guys actually play on the tabletop. You can make predictions looking at datasheets, but it's hard to know till you're actually playing them on the table. So that wraps up this video. Make sure to hit that like button if you're enjoying seeing the new kill team, and thank you for watching.